साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। 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 साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वप्रचोदयात्। 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 साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वप्रचोदयात्।
Om Shri Sai Ram, offering my most humble, loving, and divine pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet. On behalf of the entire Sri Satya Sai Seva Organization's Tamil Nadu East Coast Road District, and on behalf of the Sai Kendra Sholingnallur and the temple here, Sri Karunamai Sai Hridayam, which is the newly launched center here in East Coast District, we provide you a very, very warm, hearty welcome. And we're very grateful to Bhagwan that he has given us this wonderful opportunity to welcome as part of our launch of the YouTube live channel, Brother Sudhindran. I think it is very apt, and as Swami Sankalpa is always the best. It is the Vajra Sankalpa and it is also the Madhura Sankalpa, the sweet will of our Lord today, that he has blessed us with an opportunity for a satsang with Brother Sudhindran. Now, Brother Sudhindran needs no introduction, but I will do a duty of introducing him as somebody who joined Swami's College in 1997 to do his BCom. And from then on, he has been so fortunate and blessed by Bhagwan to be part of so many of his close and intimate experiences. Brother Sudhindran completed his BCom and went on to finish his MBA in 2002. And during this time, he has had several moments with Bhagwan, both in Vrindavan, in Puttaparthi. And he was also immensely blessed by Bhagwan since 2008 to stay with him in Yajur Mandiram as one of Swami's close personal attendants and caregivers. Brother Sudhindran has also been a very, very familiar face, a great Vedic scholar. And a small trivia is that I'm lucky that I grew up with Sudhindran even before we joined Swami's Institute. For almost 10 years in Chennai, where Sudhindran was born and brought up. And I've seen him even from a very young age, a 4-year-old boy. He has been so intense when it comes to Veda chanting and being able to, give extremely good insights into the whole Sanatana Dharma, if I can call that. So we are also today, with Bhagwan's permission and blessings, we are looking at starting off the Saptaham, the weekly Saptaham, which is going to start today on 14th June and go on up to 21st June, where we have a galaxy of Swami students, devotees like Brother Sudhindran today, who are going to share the motherhood aspects of our beloved Sai Ma. Without much ado, I would also like to add finally that once again, very hearty welcome to you, Brother Sudhindran. It's like a homecoming for you when you come virtually to Tamil Nadu, Chennai, to the city where you grew up and you're brought up. And Sudhindran has also been very, very successful in the corporate world. He has held several managerial positions in companies such as Larsen and Toubro, Konus Elevators, and most recently he's working with the Andhra Pradesh MedTech zone in a senior financial position. So without any more delay, I will now request humbly Brother Sudhindran to share his beautiful insights. And we will stop or pause this satsang at 9 p.m. so that we can continue our collective sadhana on this YouTube channel of chanting Sai Gayatri till 9:15. And we can all collect our thoughts and ask questions to Brother Sudhindran for 15 minutes between 9:15 and 9:30. Jai Sai Ram. Over to you, Brother Sudhindran. Looking forward to hear your experience. Sai Ram.
Ganeshaya Namaha Saraswatyai Namaha Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Vagartaviva Sampraktau Vagartah Pratipattaye Jagatah Pitarau Vande Parvati Parameshwarau Namah Sabhabhyah Sabhapatibhyascha Vo Namaha Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Matrurupena Samstitha Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha Sai Ram, respected elders, my dear brothers and sisters who are all here virtually, my loving Sai Ram to all of you. I consider myself very blessed that I have been given this opportunity to address all of you and share some of my thoughts and experiences with all of you on the topic Veda Mata, Sri Satya Sai Mata. Bhagwan has mentioned that there are 5 mothers in everyone's lives without whom nobody can exist. Those 5 mothers are, the first one is Deha Mata, the mother who gives birth to this physical body. Number 2 is Gomata, the mother cow who nourishes us with her sweet milk. Number 3, Bhumata, Mother Earth who sustains us with the food and virtually everything that we need for our existence. Number 4 is Desha Mata, one who protects us and gives us opportunities in order to eke out a living and contribute to everybody. And finally, Veda Mata, the one who bestows upon us the knowledge supreme and guides us on our path to self-realization. For all of us who have seen the very embodiment of the Supreme Being in the form of Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba, Swami is all these mothers rolled into one and much more. Let me begin with the definition of the word Gayatri. Bhagwan says that Gayatri means Gayantam Trayati iti Gayatri, the one who protects those who sing its praises. Gayatri mantra that we chant is divided into 3 portions. The first one is contemplation on the deity. The second part is meditation, dhimahi, is to meditate upon the deity. And the third part is the prayer, when we pray for illumining our intellect. Therefore, every Gayatri mantra that we chant has these 3 parts in it. Gayatri is Chandasam Mata. Gayatri is the mother of all the Vedas. And Gayatri is also Sarvadevata Swarupa. Every form of God is embodied in Devi Gayatri. And for all of us who have had the great blessing of getting the darshan, sparshan and sambhashan of Swami, we can very easily relate to Swami as Sai Gayatri, the embodiment of all the divine beings, Sarvadevata Atita Swarupa. So I would endeavor to dwell upon the various forms of Goddess Lakshmi, Goddess Durga, Goddess Lakshmi, and Goddess Saraswati as embodied in our beloved Swami. And each of these experiences that I am going to narrate to all of you are those that I have personally experienced and witnessed it firsthand. So let me begin with how I realized that Bhagwan Satyasai Mata is verily Gayatri Mata, who is Sarvadevata Atita Swarupa. It happened in the month of March 1999 at Vrindavan. A few of us students and teachers were blessed to be standing in the Trayi compound that day in the afternoon when Bhagwan was about to come for darshan. And as we were all eagerly waiting, the divine doors of Trayi Vrindavan opened and Bhagwan stepped out. And the beautiful and the mild sunlight from behind, it was from behind me, it was slowly, it was glowing on Swami's form, and Swami very beautifully, gently and gracefully walked down the steps and then slowly walked down the carpet towards Sai Ramesh Hall. Even as Swami was gently gliding on the carpet, smiling and blessing all the devotees assembled there, Swami went towards the Tulsi Brindavan kept near the gate. Swami went off the carpet, walked to the Tulsi Brindavan kept there, plucked a Tulsi leaf, looked at me nearby and asked, "Do you want this?" So sensing that I had the opportunity of receiving the sacred Tulsi leaf from Bhagwan's divine hands, I rushed to Bhagwan, knelt down and opened my mouth, thinking Swami would put the Tulsi leaf into my mouth. But then Swami told, no, stretch your hand. So when I stretched my hand towards Swami, Swami then placed the Tulsi leaf on my palm. And even as he was doing that, when I was looking at his beautiful face, I could see a small mischievous smile around his beautiful lips. And when I looked at my palm, that's when I realized that the Tulsi leaf that Swami had placed on my palm had transformed itself into a gold coin glittering on my palm. I was completely surprised, I would say shocked at this, at witnessing this great miracle right in my hands, in front of me. So then, even as I was looking at Swami, Swami gently smiled and mentioned that the gold coin had the year of my birth inscribed on it, and then he mentioned to me to keep it safely, not to show it to anyone. And he granted me namaskar, and Swami then went into Sai Ramesh Hall. And soon after Swami went into Sai Ramesh Hall and the bhajans were going on, I could not hold my curiosity anymore. So then I went to a secluded corner of the Trayi Vrindavan compound, made sure that nobody was around, and then took out the gold coin that Swami had given me and admired it to my heart's content. And as Swami had mentioned, it had the year of my birth inscribed on one side, and on the other side, there was a portrait of a soldier mounted on a horse. And something very close to, I would say, maybe Kalki Avatar, that we very commonly associate with. So after having admired the gold coin to my heart's content, then I took a tissue paper from my pocket and carefully packed it in that tissue paper and kept the tissue paper safely in my trouser pockets. And by then, the Aarti had started and Swami was about to come back into the Trai compound from Ramesh Hall. So we all rushed back to our places. And the door opened and Swami stepped into the Trai compound. And even as he did that, he looked at me rather very sternly and angrily. I was confused because just about 20-30 minutes back, Swami had blessed me with this beautiful gift of gold coin, and then he had gone for bhajans. And now, in about 20-25 minutes, when he was returning, he was upset with me. And I was wondering what went wrong, what happened. So, as Swami came closer to me, he mentioned, "Hey, నేను నీకు ఏం చెప్పాను, ఎవరికి చూపించొద్దు చెప్పానా, కానీ నేను ఇచ్చేటప్పుడు అందరూ చూశారు కదా, నాకు ఇచ్చేసే gold coin." So he mentioned that, see, when I gave you the gold coin, I told you not to show it to anybody. But even as I was giving the gold coin to you, all the teachers and students around, they've already seen it. Give the gold coin back to me. So Swami had given the gold coin to me, and when he was asking it back, I had to obviously return it to Swami. So rather reluctantly, I fished out the tissue paper from my trouser pocket, unfolded it slowly, and as I was about to take the gold coin and give it to Swami, I realized that in the tissue paper, there was no gold coin. It was gone. And in its place, there was a tulsi leaf. I was stunned. I was completely confused. I didn't know what was happening. I was looking at the tulsi leaf and looking at Swami and wondering what happened to that gold coin. And Swami is looking at me and asking, Ivu, give it. I didn't have any, I just didn't know what was happening, what to say to Swami. Swami then looked at me and then started walking towards Trai Brindavan door. He took a few steps ahead, turned back, looked at me and told, "Ayyo, Papam, so sad." And then he waved his hand and materialized the very same gold coin, called me, gave it back to me, and told, "Keep it safely, don't show it to anyone." And it's anybody's guess that I never dared to show the gold coin to anyone. And frankly, even I don't see it too often, just in case it just disappears again. So this experience of how Swami converted the tulsi leaf into gold coin and the gold coin back into tulsi leaf, and yet again rematerialized the gold coin from nowhere. This episode had a very deep impact in me. It planted the seed of faith that Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba is the Supreme Lord. He is that supreme being, period. So this incident also demonstrated to me, in fact, it played out, demonstrated the macrocosmic phenomena in a very, very simple form in front of my eyes. If you recollect, the Ganesh Atharva Shirsham it says, Sarvam jagadidam tvatto jayate, Sarvam jagadidam tvattas tishthati, Sarvam jagadidam tvayilayameshyati, Sarvam jagadidam tvayi pratyeti. So it means that everything in this universe manifests from the divine being. Everything in this universe is sustained by him. Everything in this universe merges back into him at the time of pralaya. And yet again, when the new creation cycle unfolds, the entire universe springs back from him. Swami, in a very, very simple form, had demonstrated this truth. He had created this gold coin, and for a few minutes it was with me, and he let me admire it for some time. And then unknowingly, it went back, merged back into him. And yet, after a few minutes, he rematerialized the very same gold coin and showed it and gave it to me. Thus, he demonstrated that he was none other than Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara, all rolled into one single beautiful being called Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba. And therefore, Bhagavan demonstrated that he was Sarvadevata Swarupa. In fact, Sarvadevata Atita Swarupa, beyond all the gods and goddesses that humans ever knew. So this incident is something that always reminds me that our Satya Sai Mata is Sarvadevata Swarupa, and therefore Gayatri Mata herself. So let me now move on to another incident which portrays Bhagwan in the form of Durga Devi, the one who protects us from dangers and secures our life. So this happened during December 1998. Generally, Bhagwan during December is in Prashanti Nilayam, but that year he decided to come to Vrindavan for a few days. So we, all of us, students of Vrindavan and teachers, were really so pleasantly surprised that we had an additional opportunity to have Swami's darshan, sparshan, and sambhashan. So Swami had come, and then we were all excited to be again in Swami's presence during Swami's darshan in Sai Ramesh Hall. But the very next day, Swami started avoiding the students, and slowly he kind of withdrew himself. He was not interacting with students. He was not even coming near where students were sitting, the students' block, so to say, the seating area. So this made us worried. We were not sure as to why Swami was upset with us, because this was, this is a cue that something is wrong somewhere. So all of us started praying very, very fervently, and we started having bhajans. We started having, we started writing letters to Swami, praying for forgiveness in case we have done something wrong. We started very, very, very fervently praying that Swami should forgive us for our mistakes, and then start talking to us and showering his love and affection on all of us. But then nothing was happening, and then suddenly one day we heard the news that Swami was returning to Prashanti Nilayam. And this was something none of us could just accept. It was just too much. We didn't know what was going wrong. And in spite of all our prayers, nothing was just happening, and Swami was not even relenting. So then we all decided that the next morning, when Swami was planning to, go to Prasanthi Nilayam, even as he was going to walk down the steps on the carpet and then get onto the car, we would all surround Swami and fall at his feet and pray for his forgiveness and pray for his mercy, and insist and pray that he should stay back in Vrindavan and bless us all with his love and affection and presence. So when we did that, we all, even before Swami was about to step out of Trai, all of us were seated in front of the main door, and also for some of us were in the other exits, just in case, so that Swami doesn't come out unexpectedly from some other door. And that morning, December 8th, 1998, Swami stepped out that morning, and even as he was walking down and he was walking on the carpet, all of us held Swami's feet and cried and prayed for forgiveness. But Swami, all of a sudden, took on the Raudra Rupa, very, very fiercely angry form. He caught hold of the boys and slapped them, literally slapped them. 2-3 boys, he held them like this with their heads, like how you break coconuts, put them like that and threw them away. And anybody who came forth received a tight slap from Swami's hands, and the impact was so much that the boys actually fell off, 5-6 feet. We were all stunned because none of us had witnessed this Raudra Rupa, you can call it the Kali Rupa, very, very fierce form of the Lord. And we were taken aback. Swami then mentioned, even as he was getting onto the car, he mentioned, all bad boys, I'm going to cancel this year's sports meet. Don't come to Prasanthi Nilayam. Sports meet cancelled. He said this, got into the car, and the car sped away to Prasanthi Nilayam. We were all stunned because no one had expected this reaction from Swami. This incident made us even more steadfast that come what may, we will pray and pray and pray and make sure that Swami's mercy yet again falls on all of us. So we did that. Our prayers intensified. We wrote more letters. We prayed literally every minute that we got. And soon enough, Swami then sent word from Prasanthi Nilayam that sports meet is not cancelled. It will be held as usual on 11th of Jan, 1999. And we were all thrilled. And Swami also permitted that all the Vrindavan boys could come to Prasanthi Nilayam and continue their practices there. So we were all happy that finally Swami had forgiven us, and he had allowed us to perform various sports and cultural activities in his presence. So on Jan 11th, 1999, all of us were ready in the ground, waiting for the march past to begin after Swami's arrival. And soon enough, Bhagwan came into the Hillview Stadium on a silver chariot. So it was a jeep fitted as a silver chariot, a chassis, and Swami was very, very beautifully dressed in white robes, and he was slowly coming toward the Shanti Vedika. And all of us were so happy that finally we were here and the sports meet had actually come true. Even as this was happening, something went wrong, and the jeep suddenly came to an abrupt halt, and because of that, Swami, who was standing, slipped and fell on his back. We were all shocked But in less than 2-3 seconds, Swami immediately collected himself and then stood back in his usual position and started giving Abhayahasta to all the devotees on either side. So then we assumed that Swami was okay. And then Swami, of course, went through the motion of the day. He came, he hoisted the flag, he lit the sports meet torch. He was on the stage, and then he blessed all the campuses as they presented their programs to Swami. And in fact, every time as a campus concluded its presentation, Swami would walk down all the way from the stage, come to the middle of the ground where all the students were seated in a formation. He would grant photos to all of them and then again walk back slowly back to the stage. So all this happened, and then we were thrilled that everything had gone very well, and Swami was happy with us. He had granted photos to all the students and all the campuses. So even as we were reveling in this joy, and as we were looking forward for the Jan 14th Makar Sankranti celebrations that also coincided with the prize distribution ceremony, we were in for a very bad shock. That day, on Jan 14th, 1999, as after Swami had distributed all the trophies and prizes to all the campuses and students, as Swami has stood up to give his divine discourse, he mentioned that on Jan 11th, when he had fallen on the chariot, he had injured his spine very, very badly, and it was bleeding profusely. And in Swami's own words, he mentioned that any slightest movement sent a electric shock-like feeling down his spine, and his body was going through excruciating pain. But for all of us who saw Swami that day, we could not even make out even a slightest trace of pain or discomfort on Swami's face. He was, in fact, even more loving and smiling, probably, to cover up that physical pain that his physical body was going through at that moment. And then Swami mentioned in his discourse that he had fallen that day and injured his spine to take over an accident that was supposed to have befallen on a student. Swami mentioned that even as December was approaching, he knew that the forthcoming sports meet was to witness a very, very bad accident for one of the students. There was a stunt program that was planned where all the students were supposed to perform acrobatics and yogasanas on a moving truck. And Swami mentioned that he had foreseen that one of those students was destined to have fallen from the moving truck onto the hard ground and injured his spine so badly that he was supposed to have been paralyzed for the rest of his life. Swami had foreseen this great danger that was supposed to happen, and then that's why Swami had told that he wants to cancel that year's sports meet. But then students and innocent and ignorant children that we were, we prayed and almost compelled Swami to oblige and and have the sports meet as planned so that we could offer it to Swami. And Swami mentioned that since that student and all the students were performing such kind of risky stunts in order to please Swami, it was Swami's duty to save that student, and therefore he had taken upon himself that great pain and that accident on his physical body and suffered and himself while protecting that student. And no one knows who that student was, because Swami never ever reveals, because he knows that that student will feel he will feel guilty, throughout his life for having made Swami suffer. But then that is Swami's divine protection as Durga Devi. Sai Durga had protected that student and taken upon that danger on herself, and assured and made sure that everybody was safe and secure. And even as Swami mentioned that all of us in Kulvanthar were crying, and then Swami told us not to worry, and then he rubbed his hands across his limbs and spine, and then told, now since all of you have prayed, I'm curing myself. And then in front of all of us, he cured himself. So this was an aspect of Durga Devi who protected the student, that particular, that soul, and saved him from a big danger. So this incident is a reflection of Sri Satyasai Mata as Durga Mata. Let me now move on to the aspect of Goddess Lakshmi that we see in our dear Satyasai Mata. And this is nobody's guess, because we have seen how year after year the Narayan Seva, what Swami had started many decades back in Prashant Nilayam, has multiplied itself and is now being done across the globe, especially now during these troubled times of COVID-19 pandemic. We see how Swami's devotees are reaching out across all regions, across all population, and reaching out to those people, distressed people, with Swami's prasadam as food and clothing and medicine and shelter and whatnot. But all this Narayan Seva is but an inspiration that has been drawn from what Swami started long time back in Prashant Nilayam. But there is another aspect, an experience that I would like to share with all of you, which takes the spirit of Seva to a totally different level. So this happened during May 1999 in Sai Shruti, Kodaikanal. It was Ishwaramba Day, and all of us, Swami had blessed me to accompany him that day along with all the students that year to Kodaikanal. And all of us who were there, we participated in the Narayan Seva and made sure that all the devotees who had come to Sai Shruti were they were blessed with Swami's prasadam as food and also clothes. And after having done all this, we then came back and we sat around Swami in the main hall in Sai Shruti. And we were all satisfied that we could participate in this Narayan Seva and thereby please Swami. But even as Swami was seated on the chair, he looked kind of, I would say, dissatisfied. So this made all of us students and even the elders there ask Swami if something had gone wrong, had we missed out somebody, or did we do something, any mistake unknowingly. Swami then told, no, all of you have done a good job, but then all of you have served, you have given prasadam and clothes to all the men and women who had come there to Sai Shruti that morning. But what about those people, those old, frail and poor people who cannot walk up all the way to Sai Shruti? They must be suffering in various nook and corner of Kodaikanal, and they are the ones who are supposed to be, they are the ones who are most distressed, and my prasadam should reach them. when Swami mentioned that, we didn't know what is to be done. Even as we were looking at Swami, Swami then got up and instructed that the prasadam, clothes, and warm blankets should be loaded on to the jeep. And then Swami then immediately got on to his car, and he had blessed me that I should also accompany him in the car that day in order to witness what was going to happen. And then Swami went out in his car out of the Sai Shruti ashram gates, followed by the jeep. And Swami then, for the next 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours, went to every lane and bylane of Kodaikanal and looking around on either side, spotting those poor, weak, frail people, and mentioning that the sevadars who were accompanying should go and hand over the prasadam and blankets and clothes to each one of them. He went round and round and round every lane and bylane of Kodaikanal and made sure that every person there was blessed with Swami's prasadam of food, clothing, and blankets. So this was a great eye-opener, for we thought we had done a great seva for all those people who were there, who had come that day morning to Sai Shruti. But then Swami, as the Divine Mother, knows who are her children who are suffering in every nook and corner of Kodaikanal, nay, the whole world. Because after all, Swami is the Divine Mother, and all the people, all the creation is but her child. So this was a demonstration of the supreme love and compassion that Swami had for his children, her children, as Sai Lakshmi. So now moving on to the aspect of Swami as Saraswati, the very form of knowledge. This happened sometime in around 2004 in Prashanti Nilayam. We were all blessed to be part of the Vedam group, and we were all chanting Vedam in front of Swami during those days, whenever he used to come for morning and evening darshan. And one of those days, when we were all chanting the mantra pushpam, Swami then called me and asked me to translate the mantra pushpam into English. So even as every verse of mantra pushpam was being chanted by the Vedam group, I ventured to give the line by line meaning translation in English. At the end of it all, when I went back to Swami, Swami looked at me and told, "No, it was not good." So then immediately I prayed to Swami, "Swami, only you can give me and give all of us the meaning, the correct meaning of mantra pushpam." Then Swami then mentioned to me that the essence of mantra pushpam is Brahmavit Brahmaiva Bhavati, meaning the knower of Brahman becomes Brahman himself. So let me explain this in a better fashion. The mantra pushpam, as you know, it goes like Yopam pushpam veda pushpavan prajavan pashuman bhavati chandramava abam pushpam pushpavan prajavan pashuman bhavati ya evam veda yopamayatatam veda ayatanavan bhavati. So this refrain, Yopa mayatanam veda ayatanavan bhavati, it means the one who knows the origin or the source of the divine waters or every aspect of creation, the one who knows the source of all the elements of the creation, becomes one with the source. So we all know that the five elements and the entire creation has emanated from the divine being, the Brahman. And therefore, when we know the origin, when we truly realize the source and origin of this creation, we therefore become one with the Brahman. As Swami beautifully mentions the example of how a small doll made of salt, when it tries to venture and find out fathom the depth of the ocean, loses itself in that ocean and it dissolves itself into the ocean and becomes one with it. And therefore, the entire Mantra Pushpam was so very beautifully and succinctly and sweetly captured by Swami in that simple sentence, Brahmavit Brahmaiva Bhavati. So beautifully Swami had summarized the meaning of this Mantra Pushpam. So this is an illustration of Swami as Saraswati, as Vedamata Gayatri. And for all of us who witnessed how Swami has given the divine gift of education and educare to all the students right from KG to PG and all the students of Bal Vikas around the whole world, we know why Swami is the very embodiment of Saraswati Devi. For she not only bestows upon us the worldly knowledge, but also the spiritual knowledge. As Swami says, Ihamanu Sukhayimpa Hemataraka Vidya, Paramana Sukhayimpa Brahma Vidya. In order to earn livelihood on earth, we need the Hemataraka Vidya or the material knowledge. And in order to realize our own self and attain the spiritual fulfillment, we need the Brahma Vidya. And therefore, Swami mentions that both the worldly knowledge and the spiritual knowledge are equally important, and they are like our two legs by which we can walk and attain our final destination. So therefore, Swami is the embodiment of Durga, Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Gayatri. Gayatri Chandasam Mata, the mother of all the Vedas. Swami used to always emphasize that when one is chanting the Vedas, one should also try to learn the meaning of the Vedas. But then, for beginners, it gets difficult to, first of all to learn the mantras and then try to understand its meaning. And therefore, on one occasion, when the 8th standard students of Swami's school approached Swami and prayed to him, saying, Swami, we are unable to learn and understand the meaning of the Vedas. How do we go about this? So then Swami mentioned to those 8th standard students that don't worry, they're still young. First try to learn the mantras well and chant them perfectly. And slowly as you grow old, you can try to get into the meanings of the Vedas. And therefore, we should all take a cue from that, from what Swami mentioned, that we should all first try to learn the Vedic mantras and learn to chant them perfectly without any errors. And then slowly, even as we are learning the mantras, we should slowly try to learn and understand its meaning, absorb it, assimilate it, and more importantly, practice it in our daily lives. For that alone will confer us the boon of self-realization for which Swami has come amidst us in this beautiful and sweet form as Sri Satya Sai Baba. I would like to conclude this talk with how Swami says that one should obey, respect, and worship one's mother and one's father because they are verily divine, as the Taittiriya Upanishad, and also like Swami always used to emphatically say, Matrudevo Bhava, Pitrudevo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, Atithi Devo Bhava. Revere your mother as God. Revere your father as God. Revere and respect your teachers as God. And all the Atithi or the guests, and generally all the beings as the very embodiments of divine. Swami often used to say, if one does not respect and please one's physical mother, the Deha Mata, one cannot progress in one's spiritual life. For Swami used to say, if you cannot appreciate the love of one mother, how will you even try to fathom my love, which is equal to the love of 10,000 mothers? And therefore, it is imperative that all of us should respect and revere one's mother and one's father as the embodiment of love, for that alone would please our Satya Sai Mata. So with these few thoughts and experiences, I would like to conclude my speech and pray to Swami that Swami should bless all of us with his divine love and lead us slowly yet steadily on the spiritual path to himself. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Thank you.
Sairam, Brother Sudhir, thank you so much for, in fact, we should say thanks to Bhagwan, and Bhagwan as a loving mother always tells us that thank you is so worldly, so don't thank me. But we can only express heartfelt gratitude. The last 50 minutes have been literally timeless. We have absorbed so much of the experiences as Swami as Sai Ma, the Durga, Lakshmi, and Saraswati aspects, which you so beautifully spoke to us today about. So we are very, very grateful. There are a few questions. I will request devotees to join us now for the chanting in the next couple of minutes. We will chant Sai Gayatri for 15 minutes. And between 9:15 and 9:30 is the concluding session, where Brother Sudhindran will answer some of the questions which has come to him today based on his talk of Swami as the Veda Mata, Veda Sai Mata. Sairam. Om Shri Sairam. Once again, our very, very humble and loving pranams to Bhagwan for having given us this wonderful opportunity with Brother Sudhindran. And we've got a set of very beautiful questions, Brother Sudhindran. The first few questions are on the chanting of the Gayatri Mantra. In fact, the very first question which came was at the time of the starting of this session, and people were asking about how to chant Prachodayat. Second, has Swami said anything specifically about chanting Gayatri Mantra? Because in the Hindu Sanatana Dharma culture, we chant Gayatri Mantra 108 times, 3 times a day, as part of the Sandhya Vandanam. So, is there a particular time? The third question is, what exactly should one concentrate on when the Gayatri Mantra is being chanted? What should we think about? What should we focus about when we look at Gayatri Mata, the Durga, Lakshmi, or the Saraswati aspect? Lastly, should it be chanted vocally or should it be chanted silently? So, just to summarize the 3 questions, Brother Sudhindran, chanting of the Gayatri Mantra, Prachodayat syllable, how is it to be pronounced? Second, has Swami said about the timing and which aspect should we focus upon? And what should we concentrate on? And while chanting, should we do this silently or should we do it vocally? And the very last question, Brother Sudhindran, is how have you been able to connect? You have been moving with Swami as the Divine Mother, the Divine Father, the Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara aspect you spoke about. How have you coped up with Swami's physical absence, in a sense, is moving away from the physical form? Over to you, Brother Sudhindran.
Yeah, thank you, brother. First of all, Sairam to all of you. And I will attempt to answer these questions with my very limited knowledge. The elders and the knowledgeable ones may please forgive me for any mistakes or shortcomings that may be there in my answers. So with this, I would like to I would attempt to answer these questions. So number one is with respect to the word prachodayat. So the way we have been taught the mantra, especially the Gayatri mantra, it is generally the so in any Vedic mantra, so the simple Vedic mantra, it has intonations. So we have the Udatta, Anudata, Swarita and Dirgha Swarita. So Udatta is when it is chanted plain. Anudata when it is the yo, that yo, when it goes down, that is Anudata. Swarita is when it goes up. Tatsa Vitur, so sa, so when it goes up, that is Swarita. And Dirgha Swarita is when it, Tayat. So this is a very simple form of the intonations that any mantra would have. So as we have been taught, when it comes to the chanting the Savitru Gayatri, or what we commonly refer to as Gayatri, so that is in fact the Gayatri mantra is found in all the 4 Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama and Atharva, and each of these Vedas have a slight change in the intonations and the way the mantra is chanted. So therefore, typically each one should follow the one that version or that form of the mantra that has been taught to them by their guru. But then in this world, when we have access to so many forms of chanting the Gayatri mantra, I would suggest then we should follow the Swami's how Swami has taught the Gayatri mantra. It is very commonly available in Satsai bookstore and even in so many websites on the internet. So that would at least help us in order to fix and learn one particular Pani, or the way of chanting the Gayatri mantra, and chant it continuously the same way. So the common way is Prachodayat. So halant, that the last syllable is it. It is not tha, it is Prachodayat it. So, and it is when it's combined with the Dirgha Swarita, it is chanted as prachodayat. So it's not prachodayat because that the dirgha swarita has to completely be chanted. Only then the intonations will be right. So this is my answer to the first question. Now moving on to the second question with respect to timing of chanting the Gayatri Mantra, as in which time of the day, and also the number of times that one should chant. Well, some of these rules that are laid down have been laid down so that there's a physical discipline and a mental rigor that one follows day by day. Therefore, that person is in a better position to focus and concentrate on the mantra. So therefore, the common custom of chanting during the Sandhya, that is during sunrise and during sunset, so that is a physical discipline, and also to chant, to sit in the same, the same room or the same place and chant it. So these disciplines and these rules have been laid out so that one gets attuned to it. It gets easier for the body and mind to settle down and focus and concentrate on the mantra. So these are very important, because as Swami says, bend the body, and mend the mind, mend the senses. So these physical rules have to be followed so that we focus and concentrate on the mantra. But it should not be the otherwise, that we are so finicky about these physical settings, and in that we compromise on the essence or the spirit of concentrating and chanting and uh, uh, understanding the meaning of the mantra. So therefore, these rules have to be followed until we are able to naturally bring the mind to attention, focus and chant the mantra with the realization of its deep meaning and in a prayerful mood. So this is my answer. And with respect to the number of times, I remember one of elders, one of our gurus, Vedam gurus, from whom I have learnt, he used to say that he doesn't believe in chanting X number of times or Y number of times. He says he will chant a mantra until he gets immersed and lost into the mantra, which means we should not be conscious of the number of times, but try to focus and concentrate on the mantra in all its depth and meaning. As Swami says, for example, when we sing bhajan, bhava, raga, tala. So bhavam, that feeling, so one has to understand the meaning, get its import, and only then we will be able to evoke those feelings within us. Excuse me. And so therefore, these the number of times and other things are an aid for us to focus and concentrate on the mantra and offer the mantra in a worshipful manner to the Lord. So this is the another answer to the another question. And then coming to the aspect of coming to the aspect of how I and not just me, but so many other devotees who have been physically so close to Swami, who have had the benefit of enjoying Swami's darshan, sparshan, sambhashan, physical interaction, and the love and affection of Swami. As Swami always says, Sai, S-A-I, see always inside. And Swami has always emphatically mentioned in so many discourses. In fact, Swami has himself told all of us, you're not the body, you're not the mind, you're the Atma. And he himself has told that, and through the experience that I shared, how he has demonstrated that he is not the body, and therefore that pain that is afflicting the body does not afflict him, and he is free from that. Unless he is in that stage, unless one attains that stage of transcending the physical body, one cannot therefore it is natural for Swami to be in that state where he is beyond the body. And Swami has mentioned that, always cautioned us that, Swami, we should develop that internal connection with Swami. Having said that, the love and affection that Swami has showered physically on all of us is something so very sweet and so unforgettable that, it is but natural for any human to miss that kind of bountiful flow of sweet and selfless love and affection. So, like anybody, I have had my moments of despair, and Swami has slowly and steadily led me to believe that he is within me, and he answers my prayers and gives guidance at the right moments, and always gives that confidence of, and when we remember Swami's words that నేను ఎప్పుడు ఇంటనే వెంటనే జంటనే కంటనే ఉన్నాను, that I'm always with you, in you, near you, in front of you, beside you, inside you. So that is something that I always try to remember and recollect, and reinforce my faith and confidence that Swami is, though physically not visible to our eyes, he is with each and every one of us. And in this connection, I recall how one of my senior brothers from the institute, in his talk, mentioned that when he had asked Swami, how to always remember you at all times, then Swami mentioned to him that whatever work you are doing, just you do that work. When you're doing that work, you'll be completely absorbed in it, which is perfectly okay. But then when your mind shifts out of that, always believe that I am beside you as your dearest friend, always, and dearest companion, and always share your thoughts, feelings with me. You don't have to speak to me aloud. If the environment permits you, do that. But otherwise, internally speak to me as if I am your dearest companion next to you, and you're sharing your every thought, word, and experience and feelings with me. So by doing this, one would develop that intimate connection with Swami, and realize that Swami is always with us. So this is the path that Swami has shown us, and Swami will lead us on that, because Swami has already has so many times mentioned that he will not give us any issue or a problem that we cannot handle. And therefore, if he has thrust upon us this situation where we don't have access to his physical form, he will ensure that each one of us in the right time will find that divine inner and true connection with Swami. And until then, it is up to us to hold on to him and trust his words and follow his instructions. And without fail, he will respond. And coming back to another question that was raised, is that should we chant the mantra aloud or inside, no, within? Yet again, I would say that initially before one actually develops that kind of concentration and absorption, it is easier for us to chant it slightly aloud. But then slowly one should be able to focus within. Here one chant the mantra inside oneself and contemplate on the meaning and get that bhava of prayer. When we contemplate on the mantra, any Gayatri mantra, like I mentioned at the beginning of my talk, the first part is about contemplation of the form of the deity. So we contemplate on the divine form, and then we meditate dhimahi. We meditate on the divine aspects of that divine being, that name and the form, and then we pray to enlighten our intellect. So our aim is to chant the mantra and be absorbed in its meaning and in that bhavam, in that feeling. And that is the very essence and the purpose of chanting the Gayatri mantra, or any mantra for that matter. And if that's the final goal, each one of us should try to attempt, try out various, by trial and error, try to find out what helps us achieve that quickly and in a better fashion. And whatever those things are physically that are required in order to aid us in achieving that kind of absorption in that mantra, we should follow it. And most importantly, if one does not need to chant it aloud, or to be seated in a particular room, or does not feel the need for those kind of physical rules, one must not discourage others from following it, because each one is at a different stage of evolution in a spiritual journey to Swami. And therefore, it is wrong for each one of us to compare ourselves with others, either as inferior to us or superior to us. And therefore, each one of us should follow Swami's teachings in a way that we understand in the best possible manner, and follow it and walk steadily on that path to Swami. And these physical things, these physical limitations and discipline should aid us in achieving that ultimate aim of complete concentration, contemplation, meditation, and absorption in the mantra and in its feeling and in that prayer. So that is what is the ultimate aim. And we should not therefore ridicule anybody who does something or does not do something, because each one should follow those rules in order that one should attain the very end, the very intention or the goal of chanting the mantra. So, Brother Karthik, I hope I have covered all the questions. So, of course, I leave it to the audience and to Swami. They are the best judge of what is to be done, what is not to be done. But these are some of the thoughts that I felt I should share with all of you. Please do forgive me for my shortcomings. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, Brother Sudeep. Sai Ram, once again, we are very grateful to you for having taken out your time. There have been a couple of more questions, especially around Swami. Why did he show you the gold coin and then tell you not to show it to anybody else? So whether you want to take a minute or so to answer that. And there is another question on the chanting of Sai Gayatri Mantra, and theme being Gayatri Saptaham. What is the efficacy of chanting the Sai Gayatri Mantra? And should we increase the chanting in terms of the crisis which we face? So these are the two questions. So if you would like to quickly answer those two questions, we will be very grateful. And once again, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and we thank Bhagwan for having given us this wonderful satsang with you. And now I will pause so that you can answer the question which has been raised.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Okay, so coming to the question about the efficacy of Sai Gayatri. So this, like I mentioned, the Gayatri mantra, that format is contemplation, meditation, and prayer for illumination of intellect. So Gayatri mantra is actually a format of a mantra, and therefore Gayatri mantra can be chanted for any deity. So the commonly chanted one that we all chant is addressed to Savitru, or the sun god, and therefore we have Gayatri on Lord Vishnu. Narayana Yatmehe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. We have Gayatri on Shiva, Tatpurushaya Vitmahe Mahadevaya Dhimahi Tanno Rudra Prachodayat. So therefore this Gayatri mantra, the Gayatri format of the mantra can be addressed to any deity with the characteristic name and form of the deity. And therefore Sai Gayatri is a prayer to our dear Lord Satya Sai in the very same format of the Gayatri mantra. Saishwaraya Vitmahe, we contemplate on the beautiful form of dearest Swami Saishwara. Satya Devaya Dhimahi, we meditate on the Lord of Truth, the eternal Lord, the supreme truth. Tannas sarvah prachodayat. So then we meditate and then we pray to that Lord Sri Satya Sai to illumine our intellect. And therefore each one can chant the mantra in praise and in prayer of that deity who is dear to one's heart. And therefore a person who worships, Lord Shiva could choose to chant the Shiva Gayatri, and therefore so on for devotees of Vishnu as Vishnu Gayatri, and each of those Gayatri mantras in praise of each of those deities. And for all of us who are devotees of Swami and who contemplate on that beautiful and sweet form of Sri Satya Sai Baba, it is therefore apt for us to chant the Sai Gayatri mantra in contemplation, meditation, and prayer to Sri Satya Sai Baba. And this is the efficacy. And Swami, and it is our good fortune that while we have not been able to see and enjoy the physical form of any other deity, I mean, generally speaking, except for a few blessed people who have been vouched that divine vision. But for many common people and those people and devotees who have seen and had the opportunity and blessing of Swami's Darshan, Sparshan, Sambhashan, it is therefore easier for us to relate to the beautiful name and form of Sri Satya Sai Baba, and therefore also address our prayers to him. And that is therefore, and the more our depth and focus of our prayers, the more would be the efficacy and therefore the blessings of Swami on all of us. And one beautiful aspect of this Gayatri mantra is that when we pray at the end, Dhyo Yona Prachodayat, we pray not just for illumination of, we say, not my intellect, but our intellect. So that is the beauty and depth of the Sanatana Dharma, is that any prayer is always addressed for us, all of us. Sahana bhavatu, sahano bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahe. May we all grow, may we all progress, may we all be together in unity and oneness. So therefore, and as Swami says, work is worship. So when we chant the mantra, we should chant the mantra for the benefit of everybody, the entire creation. And when we serve, we should also serve in the same spirit of helping and sharing with everybody around us. So these are a few thoughts of mine on Sai Gayatri. And coming to the other question of why Swami told me not to show this coin to anybody, I think probably this was a ploy to, an excuse to enact this drama. And he chose to do this to give that twist and take it to the climax. Apart from that, I really don't know why Swami chose to do that. And for whatever reason Swami had wanted me not to show it to anybody, I do follow his teachings till now, and I have not shown it to anybody, any family member, any friend, nobody. So it is, I think, Swami's Leela of, that's how the divine glories and divine dramas get enacted. So this is what I consider to be the reason why Swami asked me not to show it to anybody. So I hope I have answered the questions. I have done so to the best of my ability. Over to you, Karthik brother.
Sairam, once again, on behalf of the entire Chennai East Coast District, Sai Kendra, Sri Karunamai Sai Hridayam, and all the Samitis and Bhajana Mandalis on the East Coast Road, which is including the IT corridor, Old Mahabalipuram, a lot of young Samitis and Bhajana Mandalis. I'm sure many of them today will join me in collectively expressing gratitude along with the lot of people who have joined this live YouTube video from across the world. And we are seeing a lot of comments flowing in. We humbly thank you, and we request all our viewers to tune in tomorrow to the same channel. We will share the link for a talk by Brother Sai Giridhar, who is Swami's student. And before we conclude, we will now switch to Brother Sudhindran and request him to chant Samasta Loka and Jai Bolo Bhagwan Shri Satya Sai Baba, and then we will conclude. Jai Sai Ram.
Sai Ram. Oh. Samastalokaah sukhino bhavantu. Samastalokaah sukhino bhavantu. Samastalokaah sukhino bhavantu. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Jai Bolo Bhagwan Shri Satya Sai Baba Ji ki Jai. Sai Ram.